In this video, we're going to look at configuring our GeNetix nodes from a MagicQ PC or console system. All of the GeNetix nodes, our GW2 INO nodes, and the GN2, 5 and 10 here, can all be fully configured via their onboard web server or via ArtNet from any console or device supporting that. And of course, on our GN2, 5 and 10 with the displays on the front, you can configure them locally as well. In addition, we can configure GeNetix nodes from either MagicQ or QuickQ, and here we're going to look at configuring it via MagicQ. In my MagicQ window here, I'm going to go to the Setup window, View Settings, and Network. GeNetix nodes by default ship with a 10.IP address on a 255.0.0.0 subnet, and of course you can fully change this and configure this. If you're on a console system, we need to set our console within the same range as our node. On a PC system, it's the same, but as well as setting the IP address here, this IP address must match the IP address set for the network adapter on your PC. So you'll likely need to go and set a static IP address via control panel for your network adapter on the PC. And then in MagicQ, the IP address of MagicQ must match this IP address. You can check this by double clicking on the IP address and selecting the network adapter IP address like I've done here. Then I can go to my DMX.io window and Net Manager, and in devices, I'll see the GeNetix nodes that MagicQ can find. Here I have the option for identify. On the C encoder here, if I've got multiple nodes connected, identify will turn one row red, then I can use my cursor arrow keys to scroll up and down through the window, and on the front of the nodes, you'll notice now the GN2 is my identify node. Its screen is on and the LEDs are on the node. If I was to scroll up, you can now see the GN5, screen is on, LEDs are on. So if I've got a rack of nodes, it's a mode for me to be able to identify which node I'm talking to around. I can turn the identify off. Other controls, devices shows me the device is seen, and here I can configure things like the IP address. If I want to change the device firmware, the firmware comes with either MagicQ or QuickQ. It's included the latest firmware with the latest software. So here I'm running version 1955. If I hit upgrade device, it would show me the firmware in this version, and I could go and select that and upload it. The status would be shown in my command line here, and it would tell me when the firmware update is complete. Under the ports tab, I can change and configure the ports for my nodes. So manually, I can go and change each port, its config. I have it as an output port or an input port. All GeNetix nodes, the outputs can be configurable as inputs or outputs. And our third option is fallback. Fallback allows me to do loops of DMX, which we'll cover in one of our later videos. Allows me to take DMX out into fixtures as normal and then return back in to the same node or a different GeNetix node, where it will then monitor for DMX input. And if the input's lost, it will send DMX the other way, allowing for redundancy. If there's things like a cable breakage or a fixture fail, DMX can go both ways around the chain. So here I could select fallback, can choose my protocol, ArtNet, StreamyACN, and then the universe number, and I have timing controls as well. Quick setup at the top allows me to take my selected node and quickly configure it for ArtNet, input, output, StreamyACN, input, output, and same universe. There's also an option to match your console outputs for quick configuration. If I choose ArtNet output, would set all ports to ArtNet output, starting with port 1 at ArtNet universe 0 and moving on sequentially, as you can see here. Under options is a different view for the devices tab here, presented in a much more user-friendly way. So here I see the IP address for my selected node, the GN10. I can choose sync, we can do DMX sync between nodes. I can have the option to turn the LEDs off and the display off on the nodes. Great for installations where maybe you don't want to see the LEDs in a rig in a dark environment. We have scenes, and we're going to look at scenes in one of our future GeNetix videos. All GeNetix devices can store 10 scenes directly on the node, static lighting states which can be configured and triggered in different ways. So here I can choose and activate a scene. Maybe I just want to turn the house lights on in the venue. I can activate one of my 10 scenes. I can have a trigger scene. So our GN5 and 10s have a contact trigger on our 10 scene port, and I can have that action here. Lost data mode. When DMX is not received, or ArtNet StreamyACN is not received to the node, what does it do? Does it hold its output? If I choose this option here, does it zero the output, no DMX output, or does it fall back and output one of the scenes in emergency state or something? RDM. All of our GeNetix nodes support RDM, and you have three options for RDM: enable, disabled, or read-only. Read-only is great for fixed installations, where maybe you want a visiting console to be able to read the RDM data, see the fixtures, their modes, their addresses, but not reconfigure them. You have a read-only mode for RDM. They have pin lock. You can pin lock your node, so you have to have a pin to change any settings on the node. Then we have the options for configuring our MIDI and timecode and 10 scene for our GN5 and 10, which all support MIDI and timecode in and out to network in and out output from those. And then our option here for scenes for sending and receiving our 10 scenes into our GeNetix nodes. And so we'll have a more on GeNetix scenes in one of our next installation videos. So that's the basics of configuring our GeNetix node from a MagicQ console or PC system.